Topic: The effectiveness of a new teaching method on student performance. Description: You can conduct a study where you randomly assign students to two groups. One group receives instruction using the traditional teaching method, while the other group receives instruction using the new teaching method. After a set period, you administer a standardized test to both groups and compare their mean scores. In statistics, hypothesis testing is a method used to make inferences about a population based on sample data. The process involves formulating two competing hypotheses, the null hypothesis, H0, and the alternative hypothesis, H1. Null hypothesis, H0. There is no difference in mean test scores between students taught using the traditional teaching method and students taught using the new teaching method. Alternative hypothesis, H1. Students taught using the new teaching method have higher mean test scores than those taught using the traditional teaching method. Null hypothesis, H0. 1. The null hypothesis is a statement of no effect, no difference, or no change in the population parameter. 2. It represents the status quo or the default assumption that there is no significant relationship or difference between groups. 3. Denoted by H0, it is usually what the researcher aims to refute or disprove. Example of H0. There is no difference in mean test scores between students who attend tutoring and those who do not. Alternative hypothesis, H1 or HA. 1. The alternative hypothesis is the statement that contradicts the null hypothesis. 2. It represents the possibility that there is a significant effect, difference, or change in the population parameter. 3. Denoted by H1 or HA, it is what the researcher hopes to support or prove. Example of HA. Students who attend tutoring have higher mean test scores than those who do not. The hypothesis testing process involves collecting sample data and using statistical techniques to determine whether there is enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis in favor of the alternative hypothesis. This is typically done by calculating a test statistic, such as t-test, z-test, chi-square test, etc., from the sample data and comparing it to a critical value or p-value. If the test statistic falls in the rejection region, i.e., extreme enough to reject the null hypothesis, based on a predefined significance level, usually denoted by alpha, such as 0.05, then we reject the null hypothesis in favor of the alternative hypothesis. If the test statistic does not fall in the rejection region, we fail to reject the null hypothesis, meaning that there is not enough evidence to support the alternative hypothesis. The null hypothesis represents the absence of an effect or difference, while the alternative hypothesis represents the presence of an effect or difference that the researcher is interested in investigating.